The scene begins before us in a place called the Tower of Fangs, and we see a boy named Quintessential running toward it, and there is something in his hand resembling a dragon, and another person lying on the ground with some sword beside them, only for it to be revealed that this person is Azali, begging the boy not to look toward her. But he looked in a way that left him paralyzed, unable to move from the shock. He asks her if she is crying.
Are you okay?
Azali pleads with him and begs him to leave. He asks her about the master, but it seems that he was the one lying on the ground beside her. She continues to beg him to go until she loses more control over herself, and darkness spreads and some dark force seizes the atmosphere. She turns and touches the sword one last time before saying that her existence is a representation of the beginning and the end, just like the beast called time, which will soon end. As she says that, Chilman runs toward her to stop what is happening as well, but cannot, for the sword had begun releasing its magical power and glowing intensely. The girl weeps blood and regret for the failure of her experiment and painfully transforms into a dragon. Her transformation complete, she escapes through the roof, causing an explosion that terrifies the ears of all around. When the sorcerers there saw that dragon, they directed their offensive spells toward it to kill it. Thunder, fire, wind, and others, unaware that it was Azali, but Quintessential uses his powers and light magic, draws the magical sword of light, counters all those attacks, and protects Azali until she flees far toward the mountains. Nearly 1,000 years ago on the continent of Kiyosalhima, dragons chased all the dwarves who had long lived on that continent to its edges until the birth of sorcerers from the union of dragons and humans who came to the continent. And after nearly 5 years from what Azali did, we return to the Tower of Fangs again. Inside, the master who appeared beside her at her transformation lies asleep under care. On the other side, in the western region of the continent, there are 2 dwarves holding small daggers running from a young man pursuing them. He decides to stop running and use his magic to trip and bind them because they had not paid him what they owed him for 3 months, that long time in which even an infant could stop his sausage from falling. Dorton complains that he is threatening both of them when only one had borrowed money from him. His anger at them grows, and he repeats his demand for his money. After Vulcan again refuses to give him the money because he doesn't have it, the young man's anger rises, and he throws them aside and starts beating them in the middle of the street until he is seen by an envoy from the Royal Protection carrying a poster with pictures of these 2 criminals, Vulcan and Dorton. When the 2 dwarves see her, they try to escape and run quickly. She tries to aim her arrows at them, but misses and hits a man who is standing behind.
Women.
The young man goes to her and asks her not to test her shooting skills again, but she argues with him for using magic in public. She demands he heal the man she injured with his magic in exchange for letting him go, and says he should be grateful for that as a useless wizard who dropped out of studies at a young age. Those words sadden him and bring a flood of painful memories of his days at the Magic Academy with his friends until what happened, and he left the academy. Since then, he has hidden his sorrow over it. He goes to an inn in the city center where his friend Magak has brought him some food and talks with him about seeing him use his magic impressively to kick the dwarves behind in the street. Magak's father interrupts them, having seen many of those who call themselves great wizards capable of 1 or 2 spells but exploiting them to scam people. Magak defends his friend, telling his father he is not like them. Then he turns to his friend and asks about the dragon pendant, which is worn only by those who learn black magic from the best sorcerers in the world. Orphan tells him that is true and offers to teach him magic for a monthly fee. His father says he cannot push his son into something shady just so he can be scammed to repay his debt indirectly. Then he tells him he knows he is lying about Magak having talent. Orphan says that all one needs to be a great sorcerer is pure passion and sincerity in learning, plus Magak's descent from sorcerers on his mother's side, and tells him not to give up if he wants to be a sorcerer. Then his inner voice insults himself for his painful past and surrender. When they hear the doorbell, he jokes that such an ugly place wouldn't attract visitors, and it turns out he was right. The caller wasn't a customer, but the 2 dwarves come to offer him some deal. The dwarves appear, and Orphan, annoyed at what he's wearing, asks why he especially has to do it. They tell him the reason is his desire to get back the money they borrowed. He agrees, since he wants to pay the overdue rent for his room thanks to their delay. We go to the Magic Academy, Tower of Specters, where 40 sees Lichia waiting for him. He tells her she better have some details worth making him wait all that time. She is annoyed and reminds him how many times she's told him to stop reading her thoughts. He tells her anyone should use their abilities, and the solution that came to her mind is the answer to her question she came for, that she will indeed end up like someone. She asks if he ever thought about the possibility of immense power consuming its wielder. He scoffs and accuses her of renouncing magic in general that way. She tells him she knows the importance of training where they risk their lives to seek control over immense magical powers, not for what happened unintentionally, making that magic stronger, not the wizard. He tells her that as a result, her magic became so strong, people now call her the Scream of Death. She sees it as nothing but a group of kids learning some evil trick and teaching it to each other, but he corrects her that if that name sticks and proves effective, she should keep it. On the island's edge, The dragon flies, and some sorcerers try to kill it but can't. Then comes the turn of the great wizard sent by the tower elders with orders to slay the dragon. Childman watches from afar. Azali approaches, gives him a strange look, then changes her direction and leaves. But Childman knows that after the mountain, her destination is the village of Totokanta. In one of the palaces, Vulcan tells two beautiful ladies that in my percent, no one is ignorant of the name Purple Wearits. Orphan is surprised at the name, but Vulcan hides it, saying his friend is just nervous being near such a beautiful lady for the first time. The girl asks about his noble family descent. Vulcan confirms and adds that he runs his own sleeping pill company, surprising them at his choice, but he supports his idea by saying a refined lady like her would of course need sleeping pills, which will impress her. The ladies, Maria Bell and her mother, excuse themselves, while Vulcan scolds Orphan for lacking improvisation. Orphan angrily replies that he brought him to that palace, put him in that silly Willy Wonka suit, and didn't tell him the details. Also, the fake marriage idea won't fool a rich family girl. She's not a young girl living alone, unaware of the outside world. But Vulcan reminds him of the advantage of marrying into a rich family like Everlasting, which would bring him a huge inheritance. Their quarrel is cut short by the sudden entrance of Everlasting's second daughter, Princess Cleo. She says she's happy about guests because they bring the spirit of the outside world, as she has never left the palace. Then she surprises them by saying she overheard them planning to trick her sister and that her mother and sister are discussing bringing in the police. Vulcan tries to save himself, saying he's innocent and didn't plan any of that. But Orphan, seemingly better at improvisation than that foolish Tyrion Lannister knockoff, tells her they are from the Global Wizard Society, sent to see how civilians react to scammers. The little fool doesn't get it yet, but Dorton understands and plays along, unlike his brother, who proves his stupidity further, saying Orphan is a black wizard who brainwashed him to do it. Orphan can't take it and knocks him down. Their squabble amuses Cleo, making her think they're comedic actors. Vulcan finally gets it and tells her it's real, but she warns him about the fraud penalty and he reverts to claiming he was tricked again. She turns to Orphan, impressed that the only real thing in all this was that he's truly a wizard. After seeing the burn in the carpet caused by his magic when trying to hit Vulcan and how he repaired it with magic, she says his visit reminds her of when a wizard from Tafreem visited them before. Orphan tells her the Tower of Fangs is there. Then the memory of the dragon pendant comes to him and he asks what that wizard looked like. She says she recalls him wearing a strange pendant. Meanwhile, a team of sorcerers has quickly arrived to save Totokanta from the dragon attack, led by Master Childman. He's greeted by one of his students, Harcha, secretary of the Tower of Fangs' branch in that village. Worry and fear appear on Orphan's face. He asks Cleo about that wizard and when he last came. She says before she began her studies, long ago, but she remembers someone like him visiting her father, bringing something important, a magical sword with a dragon symbol on its hilt. Before they can continue, the dragon reaches the palace. Everyone tries to flee, but Orphan can't stand by and goes to help. He uses his magic to open the gate and finds the princess and her mother in front of the dragon. He tries to remind her who he is, saying he's been searching for her all his life. Azali breathes fire, burning the chest, then steals the sword and flees. The sorcerers chase her, about to strike her down at the last moment. The scene repeats. Orphan uses his skills to stop them, defeating them all. Then the Elder Masters direct their magic at her, so he uses the Severing Light Sword's magic again, cancels all the Master's spells, and protects Azali. He shouts at the sorcerers, telling them that this is Azali, and at the moment he says that, the dragon's roar echoes through the village and it begins launching flames toward Orphan, but he is a seasoned wizard and can block that attack. He tries to introduce himself to Azali and remind her of him, but she flees from him again, and he finds himself facing Master Childman. The Tower of Fangs lies in the northwest of the continent, the place that produced the strongest and best sorcerers, those who trained in Childman's class. We see a training session with Hartia, who fails in his attack on his master, and Lichia Forti. The Master Childman asks about Korawan's whereabouts. Forti replies he is in the tower studying and despairs of that loafer who goes to different places without telling anyone. Forti's turn comes, and he greets his master and modestly refuses to train with him in mind-reading magic. The master asks Kamakron to attack him, but, before he can, Azali intercepts his attack and turns him into a laughingstock before them. The master scolds her, telling her this is not a game, and that the start of her fame as the Chaos Witch should not negatively affect her intentions. Her turn to attack the master comes, and she strikes with her magic. Training continues, and we see Krellancello training with them. The power generated from their training frightens all near the training yard, drawing the attention of the director, who starts to be annoyed, as are the teachers. Krellancello tells her she should restrain herself a little next time. She replies that wouldn't suit her, as she wants to train at her full power. Master Childman tells her she now needs to write an apology letter for the destruction her powers caused again. The students return to their class, and we see Azali practicing on a harmonica. Kamakron mocks her and tells her not to break that instrument like the others. She replies that her reason for trying musical instruments is that she can produce magic from her vocal cords, so why not try using sound from musical instruments as well? While she does that, Her friend Quintessential writes the apology letter for her instead and complains about doing it. She tells him she made him do it because she's written many before. He scolds her, saying she should then stop doing what makes her write them in the first place. Ichika, who has just been promoted to class leader, tells her that if she keeps doing that, Childman's training yard will vanish, since the other classes already dislike them, and that her role as leader is to stop troublemakers. In comes little Elon Musk, Komirkan, hiding what he calls the invention of the era. He unveils what he named the lethal combat robot, but Quintessential smashes it with a baseball bat and tells him to stop making those metal cans that only cause chaos. Then leader Ichika tells him she'll punish him if he does it again, as she turns her face toward Hartia, who admits at a glance that he sold her lipstick to one of her fans. Both girls punish him with lightning magic, turning him into a roast chicken. Vulcan and Doran wake up alongside Orphan in prison on charges of fraud, disturbing the peace, and theft. They ask him to get them out with his magic, but he tells them he doesn't want to leave. Otherwise, he could break that lock in a second. He just doesn't want to remain a wanted criminal, adding that the fraud was their idea in the first place. But Dorton tells him they are here because everyone saw him talking to that dragon. He gets angry at their treating his friend Azali as a monster and tells them their story together. He, Azali, and Ichika grew up in the Tower of Fangs, which they all joined from the same orphanage, like most sorcerers there. He continues his story to them about how Azali, before she was a dragon, was a beautiful human who cared for him in childhood, making him admire and love her as his big sister. Dortine asks if he traveled all that way to find her. Orphan agrees and tells him he almost gave up until she appeared and reignited his resolve to find her again. But he knows that as long as he does not know the type of magic that backfired on her and cursed her into a dragon, he will remain unable to help her. His friend Hartia comes, calling him by his real name, Quintessential, and takes him to the master waiting in his office. Quintessential is surprised the master has recovered after 5 years, recalling flashes from the day of Azali's funeral. On the funeral day, students and teachers stood mourning Azali's loss, burying her coffin. But Quintessential came and smashed the coffin, which was empty, asking about her body's location, accusing them all of hiding something. Master Kurlin tells him she brought it upon herself after failing her experiment and turning into a dragon, then fleeing, and that revealing such a matter is a disgrace that would destroy the tower's reputation forever. Quintessential, for his dearest friend at the academy, says she is not a disgrace but one of the best sorcerers in the tower's history, skilled not only in black magic but also in white magic. His friend Hartia tries to calm him, warning him not to put himself into trouble and reminding him he is among the tower's elite sorcerers, the best in class, especially now after Azali's disappearance. He replies that the reason for that is not his skill, but Azali knowing the academic exams are useless, so she never bothered to try passing them. He then tells them to put something in that coffin instead of her body, place the memory of his own name, Quintessential, for he no longer counts that as his name. Until he finds her, his name will be the Orphan. Bruh. Then he decides to leave the academy to search for her. Orphan asks the master about the experiment Azali was conducting with him. He tells him it was an attempt to activate the sword of Baldan Deers, but they failed, accidentally discharging the sword's magic, and the energy within turned her into a dragon and put the master into a coma. He suspects she was in a coma all that time too, but he does not yet know if she is aware she is Azali or not. However, he is sure she has regained her desire to return to her human form. Orphan then asks why that sword was in Everlasting's palace. Hartia tells him that was the last order the master gave, as he was always close to that family and wanted to ensure no one tried using that sword. Orphan realizes this was the reason for her attack on the palace. The master says he thought the same, which is why they came. Orphan is surprised that the most powerful master cannot overcome her. The master explains that Azali is not only skilled in black magic, but also excels in white magic, the magic that can control mind and fate, requiring to face one white sorcerer, the largest number of black sorcerers. He looks at Orphan, who understands what the master is asking, and says no one can force him to kill his friend. The master knows this and says he only wants him to help them subdue her. Orphan refuses strongly, but Hartia tries to change his mind, saying that the idea of one of the greatest sorcerers losing her sanity, escaping the tower, and possessing a forbidden sword, if it spreads, will cause the tower to lose its authority and reputation, in addition to the opportunity it offers Orphan to restore his honor and the chance to return to the tower. The master stops the pointless discussion, telling them he will prepare a team tonight to try to subdue her. Orphan asks how they will locate her. He tells them he planted a tracking device in the sword, and that the only way to have hope of returning her to her human form is with his help in subduing her. Orphan is convinced and asks when they will move. Upon hearing it will be at sunset, he goes to the inn in his town, packs his bags, and says the clock hand that everyone thought had stopped for a time has started moving again to chase them. He goes to Everlasting's palace, and behind him Cleo tells him her mother and sister are upstairs if he wants to continue that fake marriage trick. He says he did not come for that. She asks if he came for repairs, and he actually does them, joking with her and asking for money. She says she has none but offers him a ring she inherited from her father, who had been given it long ago by some wizard. As soon as he holds it, he sees it as a ring he remembers. Once, at the academy, sitting with Azali, she showed him that ring, inscribed in runes with the words, "Cast down your weapon," and said it protects its owner from anything once only. Azali told him she would need it that night for an experiment related to ancient magic contained in that ring. He asked her about the nature of that experiment, and she told him the master had asked her to decipher some weird glyphs and had warned her the experiment could be dangerous. The girl asks him, noticing his pendant and his knowledge of all these details, if he was a member of the Tower of Fangs. He says he was, and that the ring belonged to his friend. She is surprised he knows the monster's name, but he tells her Azali is not a monster. Before he can continue, he feels repeating this talk will only cause him pain, so he stops speaking. He goes to the sorcerers at their meeting time to leave, and the master tells him he must lead the attack. He meets some members of the team, old sorcerer colleagues, but he does not want emotion to control him and make him forget his main goal, protecting Azali. Orphan knows his master would need the king's permission to form a sorcerer squad of that many powerful mages, confirming to him that this is an illegal covert mission. Orphan rebukes him for bringing so many sorcerers despite knowing the risk of losses among them. The master says he does not mind any sacrifice to eliminate Azali, as everyone in the squad is a great sorcerer fully aware of the dangers they may face. It seems someone is following them. It's the dwarves Dorton and Vulcan, and Princess Cleo, who begins complaining about the long march. The dwarves tell her she can go back and forfeit her share. They intend to kill the monster and sell its hide and the sword for a high price. They argue, saying giving her a large share is the least they can do to clear their charges by her personal guarantee. The trio continues their quest to kill a dragon that gathered the Tower of Fang's strongest mages until they encounter a bear and flee in terror. Orphan wonders if he could defeat this squad of elite black sorcerers from the Tower of Fangs plus their leader, whose power alone equals that of the 13. He knows his only hope is to find her before they do. He leaves quickly to search for her, and when he senses her nearby, he becomes so obsessed he wants to shout her name, and he does. She answers with a blast of fire which he evades, then tries to approach and tell her who he is, hoping she will remember him, but it fails. Upon seeing him, she clears space in the forest to prepare for battle. He despairs, knowing he cannot harm her. The rest of the 13 arrive, unleashing a barrage of spells at her, but they only buy time for Komarkan to heal Orphan. Then the white sorcerer with them steps forward, seemingly able to do something, until Azali kills him in an instant, turning him to ash. The master orders the squad to spread out and strike Azali. Orphan uses the distraction to steal the sword, preventing them from tracking her again, and flees. The master orders Harcha to follow him. With their attack weakened from 13 to 12 sorcerers, Azali is able to kill Komarkan. Harcha reaches him, telling him the monster he keeps calling Azali has just killed their friend, blaming him for refusing to fight her as an enemy, thus causing Komarkan's death. Orphan says he will not fight her and will try to restore her true form. Hartia says there's no hope, as she alone understood how the sword works, then threatens to take it from him by force. At that moment, the dwarves and princess appear. She strikes Hartia on the back of the head with the sword, then they hide behind Orphan, asking him to deal with the bear that chased them. Hartia says he will not allow anyone else to die by Azali's hand and rushes to contain her attack, only to find she has already defeated the rest of the sorcerers and is now fighting the master alone. The scene suggests this pupil's strength now rivals that of one of the greatest sorcerers. Orphan quickly moves to aid him and succeeds in saving him. The master notices Orphan is not trying to kill her, but only restrain her attacks, asking why. Orphan says he wants the master's help to find a way to cure her and return her to human form. For a moment, admiration shows on the master's face. He steps closer, saying he sees Crelencello has matured into a great man worthy to be his successor. While Orphan wonders why now is the time for such praise, the master suddenly stabs him treacherously, saying he will heal him once he finishes what he came for. He turns back to her and resumes attacking while Orphan watches in shock, powerless to help Azali. The master keeps attacking until he overpowers her and kills her, then fulfills his promise to Orphan by healing him. Upon waking, Orphan rushes to the dragon's remains, apologizing sorrowfully for failing to help her. Suddenly, he hears a voice calling him, saying it had been looking for him, regretting the rush into that experiment but only wanting to save them, and save her. Crelencello is shocked, not knowing what is happening, while Hartia tells his master Childman he will take the sword back to the Tower of Fangs, and they leave, leaving him with her. Orphan sits under a tree waiting for his master returning to the tower with the sword of Baldandirs and asks him to step out of his carriage. When asked why he is there, Orphan says he should already know. The master replies he should be grateful for being left alive and not charged with treason for his actions that day, adding that he himself requested the charges be dropped, thanking him for leading the attack and drawing nasally out. Crelencello tells Childman he noticed a change in his demeanor. He was not so talkative before and gives him a look the master understands. Now, Crelencello knows Azali swapped bodies with Childman and that the dragon killed was Childman, not Azali. This Crelencello learned from the dragon's last words when it died. He asks Azali why she chose to solve the problem by killing Childman to live. She tells him about the day she failed the sword activation experiment and fled, losing consciousness for 5 years until she swapped consciousness with Childman. She took that dangerous gamble thinking she would return to human form using the sword, but not knowing where it was, so she made him find it for her. When you stab someone with that sword, you can turn them into anything, but unfortunately, during the experiment, she lost focus and was transformed into a dragon. Now she seeks a way to be human again. She asks Clover his opinion after learning all this. He replies he will show her the consequences of killing Childman.
Unacceptable.
And draws his sword to fight her. She says she never meant to kill Childman, but he blames her regardless, saying a great sorceress like her should have found another way to achieve her goal, and that he blames himself for longing to see someone who turned out to be that evil. And the battle begins between them, and as she attacks him, he remembers his master Childman's last words and his wish to save and protect his pupil. When Azali approaches and strikes him with her sword, the blow passes through his body without harming him. He draws his own sword and defeats her, and while she lies on the ground, he tells her she surely remembers that ring she once told him could save its owner once from anything. She tries to look for it in his hands, but he had not worn it. He had swallowed it. Then he sees the sword before him and thinks of its ability to transform anything as he wishes. He tells her she can remain in Childman's form, but the old master's body will not withstand her presence. However she wished to prolong her life, he will grant her that wish. Azali asks why he has not tried to kill her. He tells her that was not Childman's wish. She protests, saying Childman came to fight her. Clover reproaches her for wronging Childman, telling her he came himself not to kill her but to protect her, and asks what she thinks was the reason he came to her in person. Azali replies he came because he wanted to take the sword and return to his body, but Clover assures her of the master's true wish to protect her, saying he allowed her to swap bodies with him without resistance, even though he was capable of defeating her. Azali feels disappointment, saying she was not worthy to call herself his pupil, and promises Clover she will regain her skill and strength. He throws the sword beside her and leaves. We see moments from the past lives of the black sorcerers in the Tower of Fangs, moments that show Azali's superiority over all of them despite their great talent. We see her outshine them all in training. Then she walks with Clover in the hallway, and he claims he let her win so her mood wouldn't be ruined for the rest of the day. She offers him another round here, but the class leader Ichika appears behind them and warns them not to do anything troublesome while the master is away. Ichika enters, and before he can finish talking about the new girl he has fallen for, Ichika warns him not to approach any girl outside their class or she'll hang him upside down. Their conversation is cut short when Kamikaze runs down the hall calling for help only to receive a merciless punch from the leader, knocking him to the ground. She scolds him for running in the hall, then goes to find class supervisor 40, the fool avoiding his duties. Ichika asks his friends Krell and Ichika for help. One of the robots he built has gone out of control and is wrecking the tower. They each try to stop it, but the first to succeed is Krell and Ichika. His friend thanks him, telling him he's rising to the title of Childman's Razor's Edge successor. Azali watches from afar, thinking that title is too great for Krell and Ichika. Azali wakes her brother in the morning to go visit their foster parents' graves. Passing the orphanage, the place looks unfamiliar due to bandits taking over the area and destroying it, yet they remember it, and Azali reminds him of the day he arrived, still a baby crying loudly. Krell and Ichika is surprised she remembers events from so long ago. She says she could never forget the day she met her little brother. He asks about the day she and Ichika were taken to the Tower of Fangs. She says she doesn't remember it well, then asks if he does. He recalls running after the carriage that took them, leaving him alone. They reach the graveyard, and while Krell and Ichika offers his condolences, Azali vanishes and walks through the village streets. Krell and Ichika follows to look for her, tired of the trouble she keeps dragging him into. Then a voice from one of the ruined houses tells him they have his sister, and to get her back, he must go to the orphanage. He removes his cloak, ready to fight, warning them he'll harm them if they touch her, then heads to the orphanage. He enters with only a knife but is tripped and has it stolen. Then a ghost attacks him. He destroys it and continues searching for Azali inside. Upstairs, he finds a blood-soaked corpse, Azali lying dead on the floor, with a fairy above her striking him without moving. Fear and the desire to avenge his friend's death consume him. Gathering his magical power, he unleashes an attack that destroys and levels the orphanage. We then see Azali alive elsewhere, having used mental projection magic to deceive Krell and Ichika. She's surprised he could defeat her, then gets up to find him. While he grieves his inability to save her, she appears behind him, laughing at how he fell for her trick, and says it's time to return to the tower. Krell and Ichika feels only irritation at all her pranks and tricks. He vents his anger, saying she wastes her magic power on silly deceptions. He tells her he knows she was the one who moved Kamikaze's robot at the academy, and that she used white magic to project herself mentally. forest. He says her pranks have gone too far. While he's annoyed, she thanks him for trying to save her and for worrying about her, asking that next time something like this happens, he'd be more serious in finding her. Quintessential remembers all this while riding the carriage back to his hometown after repairing the everlasting family mansion. He hears noise inside and knows it's from Magek and Cleo, aware they've been hiding there all along. He asks why they followed him. Magek says he got permission from his father to follow and learn magic from him, while Cleo says she wants to explore the world. They ask his next destination, and he tells him he'll go through Venrir Forest to reach Tafrim, the site of the Tower of Fangs and home of magic. They arrive at the entrance of Venrir Forest, home to all kinds of terrifying magical creatures. His companions try to change his mind about going through it, but he insists it's the only way. In the darkness, we see a black figure that seems to have heard of their arrival. They stop for a break on the road, and Cleo bathes while hearing Magek humming and feeling she's being watched. He tells her it's just her imagination, but Quintessential catches him using the magic he taught him to spy on her by bending light to see her bathe. Quintessential was surprised at Magek's ability to learn that spell so quickly when it took him years, but it seems they each have different motivations. While traveling, they ask how far it is to Tafrim territory. The master tells him it's about 3 weeks from when they cross the forest. As they walk, they spot a guard post, and he turns away from it, saying he doesn't want the Kimlak Church to tell the king they saw a sorcerer in the forest. Quintessential remarks that it's a religious order hostile toward sorcerers. We get a quick glimpse of that dark beast with a girl in the forest at night, asking her if she still doesn't understand what's happening. The group rests from travel. Quintessential was annoyed that the food he brought for himself to last over a month didn't even last the three of them more than a week. Cleo tells him they should have gone around the forest and stopped at the nearby village of Alina Haddam to stock up for the trip, plus he eats a lot of dried rations. He replies, that's because what she cooks can't even be called food. Before they start arguing, Magek gets up and says he'll go look for something edible nearby himself. While searching for food, Magek loses his way and encounters a venomous snake. He manages to repel it with his magic. A girl behind him sees this and asks if he's a sorcerer. She appears, and he asks if she's a shrine servant and what she's doing in the forest. She refuses to answer and says she's the one who should be asking. He tells her he's here looking for food for his master and that one day he'll be a great sorcerer, not just an apprentice. She begs him to go back to his companions quickly and leave the forest entirely because the forest controls her and won't let her leave. He asks her name and she says it's Vienna. They talk and he asks where she lives in the forest. She says there's a village here that's not on any map called the Sacred Heart. He asks if the people there could give them food if they went. She says she can't take them to the village, but before she can explain why, an angry group appears behind her, telling him the village does not welcome sorcerers. Magek assumes they're from the Kimlak Church, but it turns out the villagers also hate that church. They try to kill Magek, but Vienna shields him, asking the man McDougall not to harm him, since he's just an apprentice, not a sorcerer like his master. Another man says a force from the village is heading toward his master. McDougall warns the maiden Vienna that being a shrine servant won't save her from punishment if she stands in their way. Indeed, the group heading for his master Quintessential arrives. Cleo tries to stand against them, but is knocked down. Quintessential protects her, using his magic to fight them. Meanwhile, Vienna stands between the villagers and Magek, refusing to move. They try to convince her to leave him, but she insists on protecting him herself. Magek starts shouting for his master, who pays him a monthly salary to teach him magic, yet won't even protect him now. The master doesn't hear him, and Magek looks like a fool in their eyes. A venomous snake leaps at one villager, and Magek tries to use the moment to escape with Vienna, who refuses to go, but he doesn't want to leave her with these thugs. As he tries to flee, McDougall pulls a pistol from his pocket and shoots him.
Man, I'm dead.
After Orphan dealt with the group attacking him, Cleo thought his use of magic was excessive, and they quickly headed to save Mageka. On the way, Cleo heard the voice of that dark beast, but Orphan ignored it and kept going. We see the villagers gathered, preparing to confront the sorcerer. While they perform their prayers, behind them we find the true source of all trouble, the dwarves Vulcan and Dortan. Dortan scolds his brother for getting them stuck with these dangerous villagers after trying to sell them a fake magical vessel. Now they're doing barn work and household chores. Their attempt to lessen their punishment by telling the villagers there's also a sorcerer in the forest failed, meaning Orphan will kill them when he finds out. Orphan and Cleo approach the village, identifying Magek's location by the way the place is guarded. Then Orphan notices a banner bearing the emblem of a deep dragon, which means they are enemies of sorcerers because they worship dragons. Cleo asks why he thinks that, and he tells her about the main religions on the continent. The first worships the three gods led by the Kimlak Church. The second is a faith where people worship and revere dragons. She asks if he is a dragon because of the necklace he wears. He tells her he is a human sorcerer, and the dragon is simply a symbol of power among sorcerers. Cleo asks why sorcerers are enemies to followers of the Dragon Creed, so he tells her the history. Magic once existed only for the gods, but the 6 highly intelligent races stole it and made it usable for themselves. That was how the magic we know was born. The first of them to discover how magic worked were titled dragons. Of the 6 dragons, the Nornir celestial beings could not leave heirs to their magic, so they mingled with humans, creating the human sorcerers. The other 5 dragons grew angry at humans, accusing them of stealing magic. Some humans descended from non-sorcerers worshiped those 5 dragons and used them to destroy sorcerers, inventing the creed of sorcerer hunts. Eventually, all the celestial beings went extinct except the Nornir, and that creed ended, but some foolish people still practice it in secret. This village hid itself well from the outside world because of its shunned creed. They sneak closer to the village but are suddenly met with tongues of flame created by non-human magic. When the flames fade, from within them appears a dark being whose presence shocks Orphan. It is Fenrir, the deep dragon, in person. Quickly, Orphan tells Cleo to run to the nearest guard tower and report what's happening while he goes to save Megek. Then he will catch up to her. After Cleo leaves, McDougal appears and aims his weapon at Orphan, knowing he's the sorcerer. Orphan warns him about the royal family's ban on dragon worship, along with the pistol. The village chief tells him he is the dragon's servant and the leader of the Sacred Heart village, and that he is the law in this forest. He fires and Orphan dodges the shot, trying to escape without being seen by Fenrir, the deep dragon, but he's struck by a thrown knife from one villager. As he defeats one of them, he sees Fenrir behind him and asks why the dragon is staring at him. The dragon speaks, telling him he has found the one he's looking for, the one who came to take what belongs to him. Orphan is horrified that he can understand and hear Fenrir. The dragon continues, saying he knows Orphan seeks the dragon's power to protect what is not his. Orphan cannot resist his magic and collapses to his knees in pain. The villagers gather with Shrine Maiden Vienna and pray to their lord, the dragon Fenrir, for protection. They then pause to let the Shrine Maiden deliver their lord's reply to their prayers. She tells them their lord says the disaster has passed, that they should continue praying to him, and that he himself will deal with the sorcerer if he appears again. We see Orphan dreaming of Vienna apologizing to him for having them attack him, saying she didn't know the dragon would try to disfigure him, and assuring him she'll use her powers to heal him as much as possible. She advises him not to defy the village chief, McDougal. Orphan wakes in a cell, not knowing where all the pain is coming from or how he's breathing. He soon regains focus and finds McDougal before him, scolding him for being a fraud claiming to possess magical power, unlike them, who worship the true owner of power, their lord the dragon. He asks for his name, but Orphan cannot speak. Sawa arrives, saying of course he won't answer, out of shame at being caught in such a pathetic way while wearing a pendant marking him as one of the elite black sorcerers of Fang Tower. McDougal mocks him, saying no matter what he is, he cannot match the power of a gun. McDougal considers killing him, but Salwa stops him, saying killing him would be too easy. They should first ask why a sorcerer from Fang Tower is visiting this village now, and warns him of the harshest torture if he doesn't cooperate. We see Vienna carrying a bowl of food to Magic to check on him. He tells her he's better, though he thought the day he was shot he would die. She tells him she healed him immediately using the forest's power. He asks about her family since she's always alone. She tells him her role in the village is to ensure the villagers' obedience, and she only appears during special ceremonies to give statements. He asks her to do something about the princess dress she put on him, and they laugh together. McDougal comes up to them, telling her they'll leave the next day and reminding her he saved her when she was a lost child in the forest. She tells him she wasn't lost. She was searching for him. He mocks her words, reminding her that thanks to her appearance he was able to execute his plans and that she was like a gift from the forest to him. Since she uses dragon magic, she must follow his orders to find the heart of the forest. Magek becomes angry at how McDougal speaks to Vienna, saying she's not his property to control as he pleases. McDougal draws his gun on him, but Vienna stops him and he leaves. Vienna tells Magek that once he recovers, he must leave in the morning. He asks her to come with him, but she says she cannot. He warns her that if she stays, they'll drag her into something bad, and says he can't leave her behind. Vienna is touched and thanks him for being a kind person, but says she can't leave because she's afraid of the village chief. Magek says that will be easily solved once he meets his master Orphan. She looks uneasy, realizing she forgot to tell him the one he's relying on has been captured and imprisoned. They go to the prison where Orphan lies, and Magek scolds him for letting his magic teacher be a prisoner. Orphan tells him the mental attack he suffered nearly brought him to the brink of death, and that Magek should praise him for still being alive after being struck by the magic of the deep dragon, which robbed him of his mental and physical ability. He scolds Magek for all this trouble being because he came chasing after him to save him, but Magek retorts that Orphan was captured because of his own weakness while Magek was trying to save Vienna. Orphan embarrasses him in front of her, telling him to stop pretending to be strong for her and saying he knows Maishak has only just reached puberty. Orphan turns to Vienna, thanking her for the healing that no one else could have done. Thanks to her magic, she was able to heal him from the deep dragon's magic that would have killed him otherwise. Orphan flies into a rage at the dwarves after learning they were the reason his presence in the forest was exposed. He tries to finish them off, but Sala comes down because of the noise they made, takes his knife, and attacks, having thought Orphan couldn't move. As he goes in for the kill, Orphan rises and duels him, managing to stand his ground despite his injuries. Sawa says that's exactly what he expected from Krailancello, shocking Orphan that he knows his real name. At the village outskirts, we see Cleo arrive with a group of officers to help them. While the officers fear approaching anywhere near Fenrir, the dragon's lair, which both the royal family and Kimlak Church have warned them not to approach, Cleo tries to get their help to save her friends. One officer says they should wait until morning and inform the royal family. Cleo mocks those who call themselves guards, yet are that afraid. then leaves them and goes alone. The duel between Quintessential and Salwa continues. Salwa knows what the pendant Quintessential wears means. It's the symbol that he's the successor of the Blade's Edge, heir to the greatest black sorcerer ever, successor to Childman, who Salwa heard vanished from Fang Tower 5 years ago, yet here he stands alive. Orphan tries to silence him by threatening to use his magic to fight. Salwa draws his blade, and Orphan is surprised to see it's no ordinary knife but a glass sword. Only 6 exist on the continent. Salwa Solude himself is the death instructor, and is honored that Quintessential has heard of him. Quintessential tells him the title, Death Instructor, is given to assassins of the Kimlak Church, used by the church to eliminate all opposition, and asks why he's here. Salwa replies that he doesn't know which of them should answer first about why they've come, but before finishing, Cleo knocks him out with a blow from her sword to the back of his head. Again, annoyed by her foolishness, Orphan says he's sure he didn't tell her to come back. He told her to stay at the nearest guard post, but she can't remember, which frustrates him greatly. Vienna arrives and asks what happened, and Orphan reassures her that none of them died. Orphan tells Cleo to go to the guards and secure them a path, but she refuses and keeps complaining. So Vienna uses her magic to make her obey. Vienna then tells Orphan to flee the village immediately, taking Salwa and magic with him after she heals them from what they suffered. Orphan asks why she wants to save Salwa. She says he's the only one in the village who treated her kindly, and that she knows he's a death instructor from the church who came to kill McDougall, who was also a former death instructor for the church but turned into the founder of the Dragon Creed. Orphan asks why, but she only knows that McDougall is a hero to the villagers and that he brought her to deal with the deep dragon while searching for the dragon sanctuary in the forest to find a weapon stronger than the gun forbidden by the royal family so he could destroy the dragon's enemies. Orphan tells her she'll die if she goes to the heart of the forest, but she says she knows her fate is to die eventually, and she doesn't regret it because she met friends she loved, like Salwa and Magek. Orphan refuses to leave a child who can't escape his grasp to such a fate and decides to save her and take her with him. Salwa Solude wakes up feeling the pain from Cleo's blow, but finds Orphan holding his glass sword and telling him not to worry. Vienna healed him and ordering him to lead the way to McDougall. Vienna sits in her room with Majek, remembering what Orphan told her. Majek reassures her that everything will be fine as long as the one in charge is his master, whom he trusts. Orphan and Salwa storm into McDougall's house. Orphan says he knows about his attempt to meddle with the forest's heart and wants him to free Vienna in exchange for the name of the death instructor the church sent to assassinate him. Salwa, who didn't know Orphan's intent, gets angry and attacks him. Orphan says he never intended to work with a killer under any circumstance, then defeats Salwa. McDougall draws his weapon, but Orphan turns it into scrap in his hand and repeats his demand to free Vienna. McDougall refuses. When Orphan asks why, he says he needs power greater than the dragon race itself, then fires at Orphan, but the ruined gun misfires and kills him instead. With his last breath, McDougall says he saw something in the church that convinced him the continent would be destroyed if things continued, but dies before giving details. Salwa wakes and sees his job done, thanks Orphan, and leaves. Meanwhile, Cleo and the officers wait outside the village, afraid to enter a zone under Kimlak church control. Cleo tells them their friends are captured and there's no time, but before she can go, a small creature with a cute, innocent look appears. One officer shoves it away and they try to hit it, but it hides behind her. She scolds them for attacking such an innocent little one, but they tell her it's no child. It's Venrir's dragon offspring, meaning its mother could be near then flee, leaving her staring at the small black Pikachu-like dragon in shock that it's the child of one of the mightiest celestial beings. Villagers arrive at McDougall's house after hearing the gunshot and find he's accidentally killed himself. They go to seek guidance from Shrine Maiden Vienna, but Orphan appears, scolding them for relying on a young girl to make every decision. He orders them to take responsibility for their own lives and free Vienna. Some shout they'll fulfill McDougall's wish to go to the forest's heart. Orphan warns it's dangerous, but they think this means he knows its location and consider capturing him to lead them there. They open fire, but he escapes. Vienna hears her lord's voice telling her he'll give her time to flee before he punishes the villagers. She asks Magek to leave her and run, but on his way he bumps into Orphan. Orphan takes him and escapes onto a rooftop, telling him they must use teleportation magic. They vanish just before the villagers' attack hits. Salwa goes to Vienna and says Orphan told him to take her and Magek away if a fight broke out, along with the deep dragon's voice ordering her to leave. She refuses to listen, choosing instead to follow her heart and stay in the village. Orphan's teleport ends near the villagers, where he finds Cleo holding the dragon child. Before they can speak, the massive deep dragon Venrir appears, deciding to unleash his wrath on the villagers for committing the forbidden act and begins blasting the village apart. Orphan tries to fight him with magic, but it's useless. Knowing the dragon can read their hearts, he resorts to threatening the dragon's child, but Venrir says his magic can revive his son no matter what Orphan does, and he will destroy the village regardless. Orphan points out he's destroying the very village that worshipped him faithfully, but Venrir says he knows yet must punish them after learning of McDougall's forbidden desire to reach the forest's heart, a place protected by both Fenrir and Vienna. Orphan tells him McDougall is dead, but the dragon knows the villagers intend to carry on his forbidden path and vows to destroy them all. Orphan decides to drop the argument and fight the dragon himself, immediately firing the gun at it. The dragon remains unharmed and counterattacks with its mental magic, but Orphan counters by disrupting its sight. He discovers that, just as sorcerers need their voices for their magic to reach its target, the deep dragon needs to see the target it's attacking. He tells Majek to use the light-bending spell he once used to spy on Cleo bathing to block Fenrir's vision. Orphan then overheats the gun and throws it at the dragon, causing all the bullets inside to fire in a single volley aimed at killing Fenrir. Before he can think he succeeded, the dragon speaks, telling him it wasn't enough to destroy him and that he's ready to kill him. Then he calls him by name, saying, "I still have the power to destroy you, Quintessential. I know your name, and I know people who know you.
I will find you. And I will kill you.
Because of my promise to them, I'll leave you and go now." Quintessential realizes the only one who could strike a deal with Fenrir is Master Childman himself. The dragon continues, saying that even if he spares Orphan, he won't leave the village without destroying it. Before Orphan can react, Vienna steps forward and says she's ready to face him, sharing her 5 senses and the ability to use deep dragon magic with Orphan, even if it means her death, because she won't let him kill the villagers. The dragon tells her he chose her wrongly and strikes her down. He then tells Orphan how dangerous it is to pollute the dragon's sanctuary with ignorant human intrusion. Cleo interjects, saying that doesn't mean the solution is to kill a large number of humans at once. She then grabs the dragon's child and makes it direct its magic toward its mother, killing her. The great Fenrir dies, telling them they will one day understand that the freedom they all seek will create a dangerous world no one can control. Vienna is then seen leading the villagers toward a brighter future, thanking Magak because, thanks to him and his master, she has gone from being a servant to being the lady of the village. She says she will never forget him and wishes for him to become a great sorcerer, then bids him farewell. They resume their journey, with Orphan annoyed at how much time they've wasted on all these events, scolding Magak for being the cause. Magak, distracted thinking about Vienna, is told by Orphan that if he cares so much, he's free to stay with her. Magak chooses to stay with him instead, to learn magic, and asks why the deep dragon couldn't detect their trick. Orphan tells him it was thanks to his training in mind magic, which allowed him to block the dragon's control long enough to defeat it. Cleo steps out of the wagon holding the young deep dragon, which she has made her pet and even named Licky. Orphan is now even more annoyed at the addition of yet another member. The team continues their journey by carriage, the Tower of Fangs, and the city of Tefrim now in sight. Inside a tunnel stands one of the tower's students, one of the elite black sorcerers, yet this boy has just killed one of the tower's elders. When news reaches the tower's high council, they realize the danger has gone beyond caution. At this rate, the entire upper leadership could be wiped out. 40 is tasked with finding the culprit and putting an end to what is now the most serious crime in the Tower of Fangs' history. As 40 leaves the meeting, he reflects on how all this trouble began with the group of Azali's 13 apostles. Remembering that disastrous day, he enters his office only to find someone inside. Lichia, reading one of his reports. She asks if it's true that Azali has been defeated. He replies there's something more important, the murder of an elder that morning by a young man, identified through investigation as having black hair and definitely a tower member. He then tells her about the report from Todakanta in Hartia, who claimed to have seen Quintessential. That was the last piece of information they ever received about Quintessential. They now suspect he's killing the elders to avenge Azali. In such a case, they can't allow any other authority to capture him first. The group stops for a short break along the road, where Magak and Cleo bicker over her bad cooking. When he mocks her skills, she sets her little Licky on him to discipline him. Quintessential meets with a senior officer who tells him that under normal circumstances, he'd hand them over to the church. But since he's a sorcerer, he's lucky if the worst he faces is execution by beating. The officer decides to say nothing about the incident, acting as if he saw and heard nothing, and escorts him out, asking him to avoid causing more trouble during his travels. Orphan notices he's lost his pendant and returns to the officer to retrieve it, only to find the man dead. Stuck in the dagger before him is his pendant, along with a note bearing the question, who is the successor? Whoever did this was a highly skilled killer, able to act right in front of him in the blink of an eye without being noticed. Orphan takes his pendant, sits with his group, and ponders the note's meaning. Majik suddenly notices something about to destroy the carriage and pulls Cleo away just in time. They spot the attacker above them in the sky. Magak tries to counterattack with magic, but he's outmatched by one of the tower's elite, who sends his attack back at him. If not for the little Fenrir protecting them, they'd be dead. The sorcerer lands, seeing that rumors of a Fenrir dragon being taken from the forest were true. Orphan emerges from the flames to fight this mage, but the man's magic far surpasses his. He can use teleportation magic, something only a few can master. Orphan dodges thanks to the dragonling, realizing that the strongest presence here is the little ball of fur. He tells the mage he knows teleportation was invented by Childman himself, and no one since has mastered it like he did. So how can this man do it? The mage says he can use it easily, reinforcing his suspicion that Orphan is the successor to the Sword Edge Childman. From this question, Orphan realizes this is the man who killed the officer and left him the note. The mage confirms it and prepares another strike. Cleo orders Licky to attack, but the mage anticipated this, knowing the dragonling can't attack and defend at the same time, so while it blocks, he tries to kill it. Suddenly, another figure appears protecting Cleo, Magic, and Licky. She tells the mage she'll be the one taking Krellancello to the Tower of Fangs. The mage realizes he can't take on two of Childman's students at once and flees. Before he escapes, they catch a glimpse of his face. It's identical to Krellancello's. Lichia is shocked, asking Orphan why there are two of him. He's equally stunned at the sight of his double. She takes them by carriage to the Tower of Fangs where they introduce themselves. Orphan explains this sorceress is Lichia, just an older student from the tower. She remarks how much he's changed over the past 5 years, asking if he really is Krellancello. He tells her he's Orphan now. At the gate, Orphan is surprised by the heightened security. Lichia explains that in recent times multiple elder assassinations have occurred. We then see the master and the elders discussing these killings, suspecting they may have been orchestrated by the Kimlock Church. Lichia continues telling Orphan about recent events in the tower and that 40 is convinced the killer is Krellancello, especially after Haikyuu reported that Master Childman had defeated Azali, and instead of Childman returning, Krellancello appeared. She takes them to her home. Orphan praises her for affording a house, recalling she always wanted one. She corrects him, saying she wanted a family, not a house. Magic is surprised, so she explains most tower students are orphans, as the death rate in training is high. She hosts him in her room, which Orphan notices is still full of odd trinkets. He tries to pet the cat, Nora, but it no longer remembers him. In the sitting room, they browse a photo album and find a picture of Orphan at age 7, missing a tooth. He explains he lost it during combat training, where children were tied up and beaten with sticks to build pain tolerance. They ask why Lichia's album has so many of his photos. He tells them she and Azali were like family to him, as they grew up in the same orphanage and entered the same tower class. Lichia says she's glad he's back at the tower and doesn't want to interfering in his affairs, so she'll go straight to 4T to tell him Orphan isn't a suspect. She asks if he'll stay in the tower, but he says he can't. Annoyed by what she calls men's foolish ways, she scolds him, knowing the history between him and 4T, and mocks the fact that two supposedly reasonable men can't put aside their problems. Then she leaves. Orphan sits on the balcony wondering if he can tell Lichia what really happened with Childman and Azali, but knows it would either make her cry or fill her with rage. He glances across the property and imagines owning such a house, only to hear his own voice from behind the fountain. His double tells him that if he wants a house, he needs to return to the tower at full strength. Even if he does regain his true power, how long would it take for the tower's elders to trust him again after leaving and disappearing for 5 years? Orphan asks who he is. The double replies that he's the killer in this town. Orphan asks if he's saying Krellancello is a murderer. He answers yes. Orphan, angered, asks if he's just a ghost from the past. The double replies that he is Krellancello himself, and Orphan can call himself Orphan all he likes now. Lichia meets 40 in his office to tell him the suspect isn't the Krellancello who left them 5 years ago, but rather the same Krellancello they knew back then. 40 is puzzled and asks if she means there are two versions of Krellancello. She says she doesn't fully understand it yet, nor why the suspect has taken Krellancello's appearance. When he asks how skilled this killer version is, she tells him no teacher in the tower could defeat him. He is the perfect successor to the Sword Edge Childman. The duplicate Krellancello claims he is the Sword Edge successor, the only student to have mastered every assassination and killing skill under Childman. Orphan retorts that it's impossible for him to be the real Krellancello, because Krellancello could never be a killer. The duplicate says he means he isn't the Krellancello Orphan is talking about, and that he's been using the name for over 5 years. He is the rightful successor, while the Orphan who left the tower 5 years ago has become unworthy of the title. Orphan doesn't fully grasp what he means, but Azali's image flashes in his mind. Before he can ask more, the duplicate disappears. Orphan recalls leaving the tower to search for Azali and failing in that mission, ending up as an unlicensed moneylender. He wonders if Azali's promise to regain her competence meant creating a lookalike of him to kill the elders and guards of the tower. Memories of his training resurface, his teacher explaining that the difference between black magic and white magic is that black magic affects things physically, while white magic affects them emotionally and mentally. The only way to counter white magic is to have a will so strong no one can manipulate it within you. Lichia finally returns home to find the children, Typhus and Patricia, who give her a birthday gift. He introduces them to Orphan. The children tell him that two dwarves came asking for him and wanted food, so they lock them in the shed after finding their story suspicious. The dwarves try to escape, but fail. Orphan appears behind them, scolding them for bringing trouble to his doorstep. He says he should be the one to punish them for using his name to get free food, then offers to release them in exchange for doing guard duty for him. Ichika sits in her office, happy with the beautiful guardian angel charm the children gave her, along with a note thanking her for being the guardian angel to all the trainees at the manor. The charm reminds her of a birthday in the tower when Orphan had seen her wearing a similar charm and asked where she got it. She had told him it appeared in her mailbox one day, sender unknown. We see moments from her hand-to-hand combat class, how she could beat them all, even though someone like Hardia had great skill but froze under pressure, how Kamikron, though well-versed in healing magic and anatomy, lagged behind in both combat and magic, and how 40 used Childman's network technique to gather limitless knowledge and connections despite his weak magic. Childman interrupts their training, telling Quintessential he has a private lesson at his manor that afternoon, something that annoys the others, since he's the only one who gets private sessions. Ichika thinks that while he's precise, strong, and skilled in magic, he's still naive. 40 later tells Ichika that she doesn't understand Quintessential's technique. It's too advanced for her to counter. If he went all out, she'd be dead, which is why he holds back to protect her. Determined to prove him wrong, Ichika challenges Quintessential to fight her with intent to kill. She knocks him down but sees he's suppressing his strength. She orders him to get up, saying the only way to avoid her next strike is to attack with full force. When she lunges, he reveals his true speed and power, easily dodging and then throwing her down. She realizes now that he had been restraining himself and that at full power, he truly is the most worthy successor to the Sword Edge. Orphan enters while she's lost in thought, wanting to ask something about the duplicate. She first asks what he thinks might drive that version to do all this. He asks if the tower is functioning normally. She says everyone is out of commission except for her and 4T from Childman's class. Their talk reveals the mission to eliminate Azali was so secret, even she didn't know Kamikron died that day, nor why Childman never returned. She says the tower's order collapsed after Childman's disappearance. 40 even found poison in his own cup but didn't report it, trying instead to manage things alone as his teacher would have. Orphan replies that the killer version is an obstacle to Childman's reappearance, since the only two who could do all this without showing up in 40's network are Childman himself and that duplicate. Sarcastically, she asks if he thinks the culprit is her teacher or her younger brother. He says her younger brother, meaning himself, left the tower a failure because he couldn't kill anyone. Shocked, she asks if he means their teacher, but he says that's impossible. Childman will never return. She presses him, wondering if he knows something he's not telling her. Meanwhile, Cleo and the dwarves are eating during their guard shift when a group appears bearing the Dragon Faith banner. Their leader unveils his face. It's Quintessential.
Factory to fool your great intellect.
He casts a spell, knocking Licky, Cleo, and the others unconscious. Ichika scolds her younger brother for keeping silent all this time. She'd waited for him for 5 years, even preparing a place for them to live together. She never doubted he'd return to town to avenge Azali and had planned to stop him if he tried, but the one who acted instead was this, darker, more mature version. For a moment, she'd even thought her brother had truly become a killer. Orphan says the Quintessential she saw that day was the one the tower wanted to create. The Quintessential Childman trained to be the Sword Edge successor. The dwarves and Magek rush in to report that Cleo has been kidnapped. Magek saw the kidnapper enter Childman's manor but was too slow to stop him. When Magek asks who the killer is, Orphan says he's a sorcerer who rose through the tower's ranks 5 years ago and was almost chosen as one of the 13 apostles, a successor to the Sword Edge, Childman, and that this was Orphan's old identity. Magek is shocked, wanting to join his master in fighting this stronger version, but they know he'd only be a burden in such a fight. Magek asks if Orphan thinks Cleo has already been killed. Orphan says the kidnapper is only luring him out. If he had killed Cleo, Orphan wouldn't be able to control his rage. Magek then asks a question Orphan can't answer. Why has this version appeared now? Orphan doesn't know if the one they saw is his duplicate, or if he himself is the duplicate. He decides to go and end this once and for all, and rescue Cleo. The next morning, Mayak sits on the front steps reading a book he took from Childman's manor. Typhais arrives and says he knows things Makek doesn't about the man he calls his master. Back when Orphan was still known as Quintessential in the tower, he almost killed someone and was a candidate to become one of the 13 apostles and the youngest royal court sorcerer in history. But that incident prevented it. After the tower fangs allowed many sorcerers to serve the royal court, they noticed the tower had lost its strongest mages. They discovered the great sorcerer Childman and had him personally select the most talented students and train them, producing the most powerful class in tower history. Among those students, Quintessential was the most exceptional, dubbed the Sword Edge successor, having mastered every combat and assassination skill from Childman himself. The tower didn't want someone of his power under any authority but theirs, nor did they want the royal court to take him. Typhaise's personal theory is that while Quintessential was traveling to the royal capital, the tower sent a created duplicate representing their ideal version of him to eliminate him, ensuring he never escaped their control. But that duplicate couldn't finish the job, leaving him at death's door. From there began Orphan's journey, severing ties with the tower for all these years. Orphan now walks alone toward Childman's manor after Vulcan told him he saw that duplicate heading there. Along the way, memories flood back. How at 15 he was the best among his peers, but with one flaw he could never kill. He recalls Childman's teaching on the perfect technique for facing anyone. You don't aim to overpower them, especially if they're stronger, but instead seek out even a single weakness and exploit it without hesitation. Looking up at the sky as if speaking to his late master, he admits his shame at not maturing into the man Childman wanted him to be, knowing that if he had, he might have become that killer duplicate. Now he fears having to fight a version of himself that's stronger, flawless, and willing to do what he never could, kill anyone in its path. He soon sees the duplicate ahead. Surprise, Orphan hears him explain he only needed a second to teleport there once he sensed Orphan coming. When Orphan asks about Cleo, he says she's safe, but Orphan won't be able to save her or the young Venrir dragon. Orphan mocks his arrogance, but the duplicate attacks, calling him both Orphan and the true Lancello. Their battle begins. Orphan's destructive spells tear apart the ceiling but fail to scratch Lancello. The duplicate scoffs at his naivety and inability to kill, then offers only one reason for their fight. Orphan says he knows. It's Azali. When asked if he's acting under her orders, the duplicate says it was his own decision. Azali merely wanted him to return to his former identity. To do that, she believed his old self had to die. But beyond that, the duplicate's personal will was to stop Orphan from dragging her back to her past. They clash, each landing a sword strike. Orphan warns that magic can heal wounds but not restore lost blood. The duplicate praises his preparation, but notes he still refuses to truly fight to kill. Orphan says he's tried many ways to win. This was just his first, and it failed. His second attempt knocks the duplicate unconscious, as even magic can't prevent a concussion. But before Orphan can claim victory, the duplicate recovers and blasts him deep into the manor. Hearing the fight, a group of officers rushes in, but Ichika stops them. This is a sorcerer's battle, and only she and Magic can intervene with magic. Orphan wakes to hear Azali's voice in his mind, praising his growth. He recalls she's a skilled white sorceress, able to project mental images in any form. The duplicate says Orphan is still a danger to her and reminds him of the room they're in. Focusing, Orphan notices ancient runes, the room where Childman kept the knowledge and legacy of the ancient Nornir magic. One of its most powerful weapons was a killing doll inscribed with anti-magic runes capable of silent magic. That doll had been watching him, then created the duplicate, which Azali perfected into her ideal sword-edge successor using the blade Baldan-Dirce. Orphan admits he hadn't wanted to resort to his third method to defeat the duplicate. He calls him Childman and uses his trump card, the technique of fully embracing the intent to kill, but even that fails. This Lancello, forged from Nornir's strongest weapon and Baldan-Dirce, exists solely to obey Azali. Reviving, the duplicate declares he'll win for Azali, his only reason to live. Their fight reveals the truth of Orphan's past self, a man who lived only for Azali, abandoning everyone who needed him. Ichika, Kamakron, Harchia, and even Childman. Orphan now sees that his supposed greatness was just chance being one of Childman's students. The duplicate insists he did everything for her, but the present Orphan calls it a lie. He was just a foolish boy with no purpose, clinging only to Azali. Orphan finally defeats and destroys him. Exhausted, Orphan hears her voice again. She appears, and he demands to know why she killed the elders and kidnapped Cleo. She says she hadn't expected the duplicate to develop its own will. She didn't want him to be seen as a killer, and uses Baldan-Dirce to erase the doll's corpse. Orphan refuses to speak to her as a friend after what she's done. She admits she envied him for being Childman's sole successor. Azali reminds him of the day he went to the royal capital, how she left the elder's assassin duplicate at death's door. This means Typhoeus' theory was close, except the one left for dead was the elder's duplicate, not Orphan. Orphan recalls the duplicate saying something foolish that day, something even Childman wouldn't have considered. She tells him Childman trained him in mental control more than anyone else, knowing his potential, so he could be a trump card against white sorcerers. It was all to keep her in check, as she was the only one with the potential to surpass her teacher. Childman trained him to kill her. Orphan denies it. He's no killer, and he's always admired her, wanting her to live peacefully. She says that's impossible. She's alone now. He tells her she's not. He and Ichika waited for her, even preparing a place for her return. But she refuses, saying she has her own plan and wants to know Childman's intentions. She asks Lancello to stay with her. She's the only one who understands him, and he's the only one who can kill her. She'll let him decide when they meet again. Before Cleo wakes, she leaves, saying she wants to meet Ichika but prefers her to think she's dead until she reaches Kimlak. She vanishes, leaving him the same note. Who is the successor? Ichika and Cleo wake just as Ichika and Magic arrive, finding Orphan unconscious after the brutal fight and the mental struggle within him. He reads the note and repeats the question in his mind, the question he still has no answer for. After the battle, Lancello lies injured in Ichika's manor, suffering from his wounds and from the awful soup Cleo made for him. Out in the garden, Cleo talks to herself aloud, wondering why her soup failed so badly. Suddenly, Azali appears and tells her she too fails at everything. This strangely comforts Cleo, until Azali adds that the difference between failure and success lies in how one handles it, and that she chose to work hard to turn her failures into victories. Then, as suddenly as she arrived, Azali vanishes. Meanwhile, in the Kimlak church, a man with half his face hidden by a mask defeats all the guards. Before killing the last one, he demands to know the whereabouts of the Browning family's world constitution. The guard replies that it isn't in the church, that it was handed over to Childman years ago. Orphan recovers enough to leave his room, but finds a masked man attacking him. Thinking him an ordinary thief, Orphan warns that the manor belongs to a high-ranking Tower of Fang sorceress. The man replies that he knows exactly who Orphan really is, Crehancelo. Before more can be said, Cleo appears behind him, and the masked man takes advantage of the distraction to disappear. Later, in Orphan's room, Cleo tries to convince him to eat, but he knows his health will only worsen if he eats her cooking. Megek asks who the masked man was, and Orphan says it was a stabber from the Tower of Fangs. Megek marvels at how many people are chasing his master. Cleo seizes the moment to sneak a spoonful of her food into Orphan's mouth, prompting a loud cry of disgust that wakes Lichia, her face full of anger from having had no sleep for 2 days because of them. Orphan decides to go to the tower to help Magek enroll in the next student intake. Lichia is surprised he'd do this in such a troubled time. Orphan explains he already dealt with whoever was behind all the assassinations. Lichia is skeptical. She saw no bodies. He reveals the killer was actually a doll controlled by someone, but lies about knowing who created it. She sees through him but lets it slide, showing him a recent tower record proving he hasn't lost his high-ranking sorcerer status as long as he causes no more trouble. Otherwise, he'll face a tower stabber. Orphan replies that this already happened earlier. Magek sits outside reading the book that looks like Cleo's diary. Orphan joins him and says it's finally time to take Magek to register at the tower. Cleo wants to come, but he refuses. Lichia offers to make it up to her by having her own students take Cleo on a tour instead. While walking, they run into the two dwarves, once again trying to scam people by selling useless inventions. This time, it's a hugging pillow. They've named Toucan. When they find out the pillow is linked to a moneylender, they abandon it and flee. Curious about the name, Cleo asks Typhus, who explains that Toucan was the original name of the Tower of Fangs, meaning the tower overlooking the world, and tells her its history. The celestial beast priestess who built the tower was named Easter Siva. Typhus quotes her famous words, "This world must represent all that gives us peace and stability. The day you begin to doubt it, stop at once trying to understand it." Cleo asks if anyone dared keep searching anyway. Typhus says the tower's high council did, leading to war with the Kimlak church which guarded the site. Since then, the entrance has been sealed. With Childman's influence gone, the tower's power now risks fading away. Lichia still thinks it's the wrong time to enroll Megakek, but he insists. He wants to learn magic no matter the cost, to stop being a burden to his master. She agrees to help him join Childman's class. Orphan asks if anyone bears her a grudge. She says she lives a respectable life and is liked by everyone unlike him, so he knows trouble will follow them. Sure enough, they're ambushed by a mob of Dragon Faith followers. Lichia says she can handle at most 2 of them, but Orphan feels a sharp focus and power he hasn't in a long time and defeats them all barehanded. Approaching one, he warns him not to resist. His internal injuries will make any movement painful and asks why they attacked. They say it's revenge for their slaughtered comrades. Orphan is baffled he hasn't killed anyone. Before he can get answers, the masked sorcerer from earlier appears, asks about the manuscript, and slices the man's throat. Turning to Orphan, he says they both know neither of them wanted to meet, yet here he is. He introduces himself as Hydrant and asks if Orphan remembers him. Of course Orphan does, but he demands to know why Hydrant did all this. Hydrant says simply, unlike Orphan, he can kill people. Enraged, Orphan blasts him with an explosion almost strong enough to kill, but Hydrant evades it, appearing behind him to mock his lack of control over his temper or his magic. Lichia jokes that she must be famous if a Tower High Council member himself is escorting them. Hydrant says the tower welcomes and watches them. They arrive at the tower where Vinpai, secretary to Master Forty, asks Lichia to help Magic fill out his registration while he takes Orphan to meet Forty. Forty greets Orphan by telling him the secretary is a spy. Surprised this is the first thing he hears, Orphan listens as Forty explains he knew Orphan wouldn't answer questions about the Elder murders or Childman's disappearance. The spy had told Forty Orphan wasn't registered, but Forty knew he had been 7 years ago before being expelled for misconduct and later meeting our Carlin, the tower's assassination instructor. Orphan asks why Forty is so calm about this, especially since someone had tried to poison his tea earlier, and says nothing in the tower should make him a target for Master R. Forty replies that's exactly why they must deal with him first. Orphan then brings up the stabber who broke into Lichia's home. Forty says Dragon Faith followers were slaughtered in the Tafrim region and shows Orphan a report signed by Hydrant, one of ours former students. The whole thing was staged. They were attacked, yes, but Orphan's group only defended themselves in unarmed combat. The slaughter was Hydrant's doing after they'd left. Forty says he kept this from Lichia, knowing she'd storm into R's class if she found out, but is surprised Orphan did exactly that. Orphan storms into R. Carlin's class furious. He says he knows R's former student Hydrant killed those people. Orphan's group didn't kill anyone. R claims ignorance, saying he only sent students to retrieve bodies and clean up to protect the tower's reputation. Orphan threatens him, stay away from Lichia and Megek, or he'll learn the fear of being targeted by a tower stabber. He reminds him who he is, the best student of the tower's best sorcerer Childman. R says he hasn't forgotten and regrets letting Childman have him in his class back then, but warns Orphan in turn, don't make the tower's assassination instructor your enemy, especially with Childman gone. After the sightseeing tour led by Lichia's students, she was pursued and attacked by what the children said was a tower-affiliated stapper. When Orphan arrived, he wanted to chase after the stapper, but Lichia told him that this was her home and she was the one who had to protect it. She had already defeated a third-class stapper on her own, one cowardly enough to attack a young girl with 2 children in tow. Before fleeing toward the city, she left them behind to pursue him, but it seemed he wasn't alone and that he and his companions were luring her into a trap. After making sure Cleo was safe and tending to her wounds, Orphan went to Lichia and asked Magic to make sure Cleo wouldn't follow him. Lichia continued tracking the stapper, hearing sounds drawing her from point to point until she encountered him. She was surprised to find that the stapper before her was none other than Hydrant, alongside his colleague Swain, both from Master Arcarlin's class. They told her they had hoped she could convince Orphan to come with her so they could capture him, but now they'd settle for letting her go unharmed if she cooperated and answered their questions. They asked her about the Browning family's constitution, confident that even if she didn't know about it herself, she would know which of Childman's students might. She told them she wouldn't talk easily, so Swain replied that he knew it wouldn't go smoothly, and the fight began. Hydrant knew she was stronger than them in magic and told his partner to target her throat. They tried to slit her neck, but she escaped, at the cost of her fingers being struck by the sword. Swain argued that letting her live now would waste all their effort, but Hydrant mocked the idea that such a minor injury could take down a student of Childman's class. Then he asked what Swain planned to do about their agreement to use her as bait. Before they could approach her, another stapper appeared, stopping them in their tracks. Everyone was shocked to see the stapper still alive. It was Azalea. The moment she arrived, the two fled. Azalea healed her sister and vanished again. Orphan arrived, saw Lichia injured, and carried her home, caring for her until she woke. She thanked him for saving her, even though he knew it had been Azalea, and he accepted the thanks, continuing to conceal the truth about Azalea being alive. He told her the nerves in her hand had been completely severed and vowed to avenge her. But here, the protective big sister in Lichia resurfaced, stopping him from charging off in anger and doing something reckless. She told him to go to 40, report what happened, and have him contact the tower's high council to inform them that our Carlin's class had attempted to kidnap and assassinate her, so they would be punished. She assured him 40 would gladly act on this, seeing it as a golden chance to get rid of our Carlin. She also asked him not to do anything foolish and not to leave her alone in the city again if she meant anything to him. With everyone else gone from the tower without a trace, all she had left was 40 and her little brother Orphan. Leaving her in the room, Orphan stepped outside for some air, only to find Azalea before him. Angry, he asked why she was showing herself now. She told him she had every right to appear since he'd said she had a room in that house. She invited him to sit so she could explain that going to the tower to report what happened wouldn't help him take down our Carlin's class, whose plan had started long ago and was now in its final stage, eliminating all their enemies. While Azalea's clone had killed some elders loyal to Master Hour, in the shadows, R himself had been killing off anyone who opposed him, taking advantage of Childman's absence to seize control of the tower. She reassured Orphan that they weren't after Childman's students to kill them, but were seeking the Browning Constitution, a name that rang a bell for Orphan, as a stapper had asked him about it at Lichia's home. The truth of the Constitution was this: 1,000 years ago, one of the 6 gods, Swedenborg, tried to kill the other gods to become the sole deity. From that moment, he became known as the King of Magic. But the Kimlak Church worshipped 3 gods, so this legend was forbidden to spread, and they tried to suppress it. In secret, however, the King of Magic had left behind a book that served as the world's constitution. The church had obtained this constitution, which was stored in the Tower of Fangs, then entrusted it to the most prestigious family capable of protecting the secret, the Browning family. It was then taken by followers of the Dragon Creed and eventually came into Childman's possession. Our Carlin believed this constitution held the secrets of ancient magic and was the source of Childman's power and prestige, which drove him to seek it in order to control the tower. Orphan now understood that Carlin's class had attacked the Dragon Creed followers and Lichia to discover the book's location. He asked Azalea where it was, and she asked what he would do if he knew. She told him they needed the book, and time was running out. Carlin's class would make their final move tonight. They had already gone so far as to attack a high-ranking sorceress like Lichia, meaning an attack on 40, Orphan, or Azalea herself would come soon. She feared for Lichia's safety, as she was too injured to defend herself. Azalea told Orphan to do exactly the opposite of what Lichia had asked: eliminate Master Carlin. She said she asked this because she was the only one who understood him. He replied that this was exactly why she could manipulate him however she wanted. She told him he should be grateful. She was giving him the chance to confront his past self and reclaim his true identity. She pulled from her pocket the Nornir legacy, which allowed its holder to use magic freely, and before leaving told him where the world's constitution was, in his student Maggot's possession. She advised him to use it wisely to negotiate with our Carlin and said goodbye, telling him she'd see him at the tower. Orphan returned home and asked Magek how he had gotten the book. Magek said he found it in Childman's mansion. Orphan then said he was going to do something. As usual, Magek asked to come, but having been refused so often, he quickly lost his excitement until Orphan, unlike before, told him that someone reckless like him needed breaks for his stupidity and that he needed them to come along. Leo said. Just telling them what he planned didn't mean they'd let him go alone. He replied that he actually meant for them to come. When they asked where, he said he was going to the Tower of Fangs to fight the one who injured Lichia. They arrive at the tower, and it's clear Cleo has no idea what's going on. If it weren't for the punch she landed on Sawa back in the cell, her role in this story might have already ended. Still, she keeps dragging them into trouble with her wild guesses and foolish antics, which only cause more chaos. But now, she said one thing that's actually correct, that the book Magek has is the reason Lichia was hurt. Orphan knows that sooner or later, they'll have to settle things with our Carlin's class. Using his magic, Orphan gets them over the wall and into the tower. Magek asks if Carlin's students are inside, but Orphan is sure they wouldn't leave their station on a night like this. It would raise the guards' suspicion, and 40's network would detect them. Instead, they pick a time when the guards weren't fully alert to slip out and begin their mission. That worries Magek, since midnight is approaching. Orphan says he came hoping they wouldn't expect his attack, and that part of him wants to see if he's truly worthy of the title. He sends Magek and Cleo to the guard room, but when he gets there himself, it's empty. He thinks Carlin's group has already made their move, until Hardian ambushes him from behind. Orphan orders Magek and Cleo to fall back and engages him in battle. Orphan warns that their fight will attract the guards' attention. Hardian replies that's something our Carlin should worry about, not him. He's a member of the Tower's High Council and might even be rewarded for trying to settle a dispute between Childman's and Carlin's classes. He doesn't care what happens to his former master. His only goal is killing Krellancello, no matter the cost. Their fight takes them to Childman's old training yard. Hardian tells Krellancello this place reminds him of the scar on his face, the one Krellancello gave him in the royal capital when the Tower's elders sent him to block Krellancello's bid to join the royal court. He recalls that day when he interrupted Krellancello's talk with the king's envoy, amazed that someone so young was attempting the trial. He had come against the Tower's wishes and Childman's to seek that great honor, but the Tower had to have at least one sorcerer capable of killing her, capable of facing Azali. The Tower had trained Krellancello for that purpose. Hearing this enraged him, and he struck Hardian with the magic that left that scar. Hardian says he doesn't care about the Browning Constitution. He's here for revenge over that scar. Krellancello replies that what he's just said hurt him, so he'll repay that pain, along with avenging Lichia's injury. A fierce magical duel begins. Hardian believes himself stronger, promising to erase Childman's name from the Tower's legacy. Krellancello counters his attack, and the fight rages on. Meanwhile, after an explosion caused by Licky, Cleo is knocked out. She wakes in the tower garden, alone, and is approached by 40's secretary, Vinpai. She threatens to scream if he gets closer, but he grabs her. The Depth Dragon lets her read his thoughts, and she's furious to see he considers her useless. She shoves him away, so he tries to burn her with his magic, but the Depth Dragon shields her, severing the hand he raised toward its mother. Realizing the dragon is near her, Vinpai decides to kill it. Magek wakes elsewhere, having been teleported to safety by Licky, unintentionally after the attack. Swain, who ended up with him by mistake, explains it's called teleportation magic. Swain tries to kill him, but Magek conjures a magic shield and considers fleeing. When Swain mentions the Constitution, Magek refuses to hand it over. He won't betray the trust his master placed in him. He attacks with a blast he's trained to use without burning his own hand, but Swain emerges from the rubble, saying he missed. Magek surprises him by teleporting away from the next blast, then tries another attack. But Swain knows that after casting such powerful spells, the boy will be drained. Before Swain can finish him, 40 appears out of nowhere, protects Magek, and drives Swain off. 40 tells Magek that outsiders shouldn't interfere in Tower affairs. Magek says he's no outsider. 40 replies he knows, and even considers Magek his student, but insists he leave this matter to him and Krellancello. Back in the duel, Krellancello finally overpowers Hardian, pinning him to the ground. He says he's been trained in combat arts beyond any tower stapper. Hardian tries to provoke him again by mentioning Azali, but Krellancello is unmoved, intent on disfiguring the other half of his face. Hardian begs for his life, but Krellancello tells him he should have thought of that before attacking Lichia and slaughtering the Dragon Creed followers. Before he can finish him off, Cleo and Licky arrive. She'd knocked Vinpai out, and Licky brought her here. Krellancello abandons killing Hardian, leaving him unconscious, and goes with her to finish what they came for. They enter our Carlin's classroom. Carlin, apparently expecting them, says they're late. Krellancello jokes that assassins don't keep appointments. Carlin says he's surprised Krellancello didn't come alone and brought friends, but that he's already lost. He's gotten the Constitution from Magek. Krellancello says his patience is gone after chasing thieves who don't return what doesn't belong to them, but seeing Carlin's face doesn't even bother him. Carlin is irritated by the disrespect and says Childman's high standing came from that book. Krellancello says of course he knows. and that the book is written in difficult runes, smiling slyly. Carlin opens it and finds it's been swapped with what looks like a teenage girl's diary. Krelin did it on purpose to destroy their trump card. Carlin, furious, orders his students to attack. Krelin holds them off but takes a sword slash to the hand. 40 appears suddenly, saving him and killing the attacker at the last second. He then reads out a warrant. Master, R. Carlin and his students are under arrest for attacking a high-ranking Childman class sorceress and their crimes against the Dragon Creed, by order of the High Council signed by Hydrant himself in exchange for his release. But outside of what's in the warrant, Carlin has broken many other rules. 40 tells him to choose, end this fight now, or be executed here. Though 40 isn't used to fighting, he's not as soft-hearted as Krelin, and after all the trouble Carlin's caused, he won't hold back. Carlin scoffs at their small numbers. Then the Chaos Witch, Azali, arrives to aid them. 40 clearly knew she was alive. She moves to fight Carlin, but Krelin blocks her and takes Carlin on himself, nearly finishing him. Before the killing blow, he says the true technique he inherited from Childman is the Stapper technique, the art of killing one's foes. He knocks Carlin down, and Azali steps in to erase all memories of her resurrection from Carlin's students' minds. 40, Azali, and Krelin regroup. 40 thanks him for helping get rid of the troublesome master and secure the tower. Azali says she'll take the real world's constitution. 40 asks how Carlin found out the book was in Lichia's home. She says she'd been trying to make him and his students part of her plan, that the book never contained any amazing magic to begin with. Before he can ask what it does contain, she begins a teleportation spell, ending with the words of the priestess Easter Siva. The day you feel doubt toward this world, stop searching immediately. She says she knows the world is heading toward ruin with the changes happening, and that if he truly wants to do something about it, he must come with her to the Kimlak church.